Step outside.
A very good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for beaming in wherever you are. Thank you those people who are in Zoom and those people who are joining in on our live stream and all our social media works. Also, if you're watching the recording of this at a later date, it's great that you're here. Thank you. Just before we start the Indigenous Ways Wisdom Circle, I just want to take this time to acknowledge our caretakers and ancestors of these lands that we reside on here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the Pueblo. And then also want to take this time wherever you are beaming in from at this moment to acknowledge the traditional caretakers and ancestors of the lands that you reside on so we could be here this evening.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. I want to say a big hello to my mother, Kathy, and my stepfather in Chinle, Arizona. That's Chinle, Chinle, Arizona. Love you guys. Thank you for supporting our shows. Wanted to let everybody know that our nonprofit is dedicated to bridging cultural exchange globally, and we start with our grassroots and move on out, and we've got people that are joining us from New Zealand and Australia, and we have people from all over the world that are bridging together, and our goal is always to drop the walls of separation.
Hey, Terry, and our social media,
We
mate,
also
great to see you.
Want everybody to know that we all bleed red blood, and we all are fine-fingered people. That means we have relatives that are four-leggeds. We have relatives that are winged ones. We have relatives that are fish people. We all belong to Mother Earth. We're here for a temporary time, so let's continue to respect our beautiful Mother Earth we live on. Thank you all for being here tonight. We have our events Wednesdays at 6 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time. That's the Wisdom Circle. We get young spirits like Mr. Colin Denny. He's got a very old traditional soul. We get elders that have beautiful messages that we need to learn from. And we have all people all in between that. And again, our goal is to bridge people, That's what our nonprofit is all about. So thank you all. We have our Friday night performances. That's music and comedy. And that's going really well as well. So thank you all very much. And I would like to introduce Mr. Colin Denny.
Actually, can I just interrupt you? Because I want to say this before you introduce Colin. You know, I'm so excited about our guest this evening. His name is Colin Denny. And a few years back, Tash said to me, hey, do you want to go to a graduation? And I was like, oh, this will be the first graduation. And at the time, I had my best friend in from New Zealand, Huriana Kereru, who was on her way to the South Americas. And I said, hey, do you want to do this graduation? And she was like, yeah, I've never done a graduation. And I said, I haven't either. So we drove to Dene College in Titsaile on the Navajo Nation. And
T-S-A-I-L-E.
And what ended up happening was we're like, oh, okay. So we got there at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, well, this is going to be fun. We don't know anyone. And what ended up happening was it was the best thing that I had ever experienced. And it was the best thing that I had experienced simply because of the keynote speaker. And the keynote speaker is who we have in tonight. And as he addressed everyone at Dene College where he was graduating from, he got 4 standing ovations. 4. So buckle up. Tasha's going to introduce this extraordinary person, and we're going to share more when we all come back in through Zoom.
Okay, well, tonight I'm really excited to have our little brother from the Navajo Nation, Mr. Colin Denny. We are very proud of Colin.
On steroids.
Colin has just blown everybody away.
And beyond.
He has a story to tell you guys. Buckle up, hang on to your seats. And Colin is going places. Colin is going places.
Absolutely.
He's been met with intense challenges. He's overcome all of them. He's been a victor over all the challenges. He knows his roots. He knows his clan. He grew up speaking the Navajo language. And I'll let him tell the rest. And I believe Colin's going to introduce himself in his own way. So Colin Denny's from Pinon, Arizona, graduated from Gallaudet University, got his undergrad. He's currently in a master's degree. He changed majors. He was in graphic arts, and now he's in ASL. He's going to be a professor, American Sign Language, to teach Navajos, the Navajo Nation, hearing people, teachers, children, family. He's going to teach deaf Navajos, hard of hearing Navajos, about American Sign Language. Please welcome Colin Denny.
Woo!
Good evening, everyone. I'm Colin Denny, and I was born in Sharp Rock, New Mexico in the 90s, in 1990, almost 29 years ago. Looking back, I never thought I would be here today to share my story with you. Based on how I grew up and based on my life experiences, I just did not see myself here. I was born hearing. I became hard of hearing when I was 5. My parents didn't know that, and they didn't expect to see me as a hard of hearing person today. And right now, my family has been increasingly exposed to the deaf culture and the deaf community and sign language. Most of my friends are hearing. I think I'm the only one that's deaf, and so they realize that there's a deaf community and that the deaf community has language, and that has taken time. I started learning ASL when I was 13, and I know I kind of jumped ahead, but let me back up. I realized I was the only deaf person at that time, and the time I'm talking about is my time in middle school. And what I needed was more than just auditory aids and lip reading. I was hitting my maximum and I couldn't get any more. And so my parents are Navajo teachers, and so they teach reading and writing. And at that time, I was hearing with a hearing aid. And also during that time, I realized, and my parents realized that I needed a better education than when I was getting. So I went to ADB, that's the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind. I transferred over to that school, and there I saw tons of people having conversations in ASL. Now, ASL stands for American Sign Language. And it was also my first time at a deaf school, and I was like, wow, okay, so this is what it's like. It was small, but it was big enough for me to see because I was in the school and I just transferred there and I was learning about the community. I didn't know much about ASL yet at that time. So I went to the school, I met with the principal, I met with the various teachers and staff members, and the whole time I wasn't understanding what was going on because I didn't know ASL at that time. So I became a little more assertive and I started writing to communicate, and almost all the students in the classroom spoke sign language, which I had a tough time with at the beginning because I couldn't understand what I was seeing. When I was at my other school, it's called something that's called mainstream, which means I was the only one with the hearing programs. And the programs weren't anything I like. At the hearing school, that mainstream program, they taught American Sign Language to me unsuccessfully. All I got was the basics, like daily conversation, like what's up, apple, ball, really simple concepts. I didn't really get too linguistically complex into ASL at the public hearing mainstream school. And what's interesting is that ASL's grammar is similar to Navajo language, because I remember from when I used to hear from before I lost my hearing. So when I realized that their context was similar, and I realized that I had some information gaps and I had some language gaps, and I would be better at the deaf school at that time in comparison to the hearing public school. Now, I was able to hear just a bit, but I wasn't as successful at the hearing school than I was at the school for the deaf. And so I started picking up sign language there. I started noticing my development and my improvement as far as literacy and my receptive skills in American Sign Language. And also the students at the school there had varying degrees of language skills. Most there had different experiences. Like myself, I had a unique experience. Many did as well. Some deaf were born to hearing families. Some deaf were born to also deaf families. Some deaf were born to hearing families in the city that know about deaf people. Others don't. And so I wasn't sure where I fit in. So being at the deaf school was new exposure to me to American Sign Language and the deaf community, which I hadn't realized at that time. And like I said, my parents were teachers. They're already educators, and they both made me think and realize, and when I look back, if it weren't for them, I do wonder where I'd be. So I'm extremely grateful for my parents because they did the research and the due diligence to find the school that I attended, and I learned my sign language there. So I went to ASDB for 6 years, and I graduated, and I really never thought that I would identify as a deaf person. But looking back and thinking about all the changes I went through, sure had a large impact on me. Another thing is I remember being at the dorm for the first time. That reminded me being in Navajo City when you're forced to go to a boarding school. It was kind of the same feeling. I mean, the only difference is I wasn't forced to go to the school. It was my choice to attend ASDB because I wanted a better education and I wanted to educate myself so I could push myself in life. And I didn't realize or acknowledge that I had those feelings. I'm at a point now where I've unpacked a lot of my past and my childhood, and I have made those realizations, and I do want to become something. Now, I'm still not sure what, but I'm working on it. Well, at that point, I knew I wanted to become something, and I wasn't sure what, and so I started working on it, and that was 2009 when I graduated with the largest class. I think it was about 27 to 29 students that graduated there from ASDB together as a group. And even though it was a small group, that was fine with me because we all connected with each other and we all really felt like family. We all knew each other. We went to our senior retreat. And that was a fresh experience in comparison to being in a mainstream program. And I know that in a mainstream program, because it was a hearing school, most people just spoke and I missed out. And I actually straddle both worlds. I stand between the deaf and the hearing world. And so I do have the experience of speaking. I have an understanding of what sound like. I understand specific Navajo sounds or English as well. And all that made me realize, hey, I am actually a trilingual person. I speak 3 languages and that's my privilege. And if not for that, I think I would have been a monolingual person, well, maybe bilingual, English and ASL, but I have an additional language which allows me to have a different perspective than those who just speak the 2 languages, ASL and English. So at that school, I graduated, I took a year off, and again, my parents were wondering if I was gonna have any post-secondary education. I applied to Dina Community College, and my parents weren't completely confident if I could stay in Tucson alone. And I expressed to them that I could. My parents didn't believe it, but it took time for them to realize that I can do things on my own. And again, it was just more exposure to folks in the deaf community and the frustrations that happened to me that they witnessed. I told them that I can manage. They weren't able to see me navigate those because, of course, they were 8 hours away while I was at the dorm. And again, I felt like it was family there, and I told them that I'd be able to make progress. Now, I don't communicate with my family in American Sign Language. I speak with most of them. However, my mom and my sister, we sign a bit as well. And I try my best to integrate with the family because I can't separate. Family is forever, and they're always there supporting me. And I also have my deaf community friends, and I also have a family there who is also supportive of me. And it's important for me to be aware that I have both support systems, that I have a lot of optimism and a lot of motivation and encouragement from both support systems that I have in place. And at a certain point, I came back home because I realized the years I spent as a mainstream student, 6 years exactly, and then 6 years as a deaf student at a deaf school, I realized that that was 12 years of being away from my family for way too long. And home is the anchor. It's always there. It's not somewhere you leave. You can never move away from home. So my parents, my family, being my foundation, uh, instructed me and taught me the ways of a traditional lifestyle, which I've assimilated and I've incorporated to myself and has made me stronger. And despite being at the dorm for 6 months, for 6 years, I mean, and the first time without my family, I still remember I just couldn't let go of them. And I remember the first few weeks there at the deaf school, I had to move because I was there at the school for me. I was there for my family. So I had to push myself. And I asked myself, okay, so what's my intention of being here? I wanted a good education. What am I going to do with my future? So that's when I really started pushing myself. But despite that, I took a year off and then I went to Denny College. I attended for 6 years as a student. During my time there, I was provided interpreter services. I did have a note taker, however, for my college classes. And sometimes I felt like that wasn't a success for me because the note taker was using their ears while I was watching, trying to read lips based off the professor's behavior. And I still had a sense that I was missing some communication going on in the class. And I wasn't sure what exactly I was missing. But as a deaf individual, I was able to understand that that's the deaf experience. And despite being hard of hearing since I was 5 and having some hearing, some residual hearing, a fully deaf person doesn't have that. And I do have some hearing. So being a part of the deaf community and having learned ASL made me think twice about the privilege that I have because I do have that. So in my community college experience and experiencing frustrations, I realized why I was asked why I didn't apply at Gallaudet. And I thought, well, why not? That's a good question. So I tried. So I spent 6 years there at Denny College. They were a little frustrating, but they put the pressure on me. I put the pressure on myself because I knew that I had the capacity, if only I had the interpreter, right? They said it wasn't affordable there, but that's not an excuse. Another thing they said was that the nearest interpreter was 4 hours away, and they would have to come on a 4-hour drive for a 3-hour class, drive away for 4 hours, and then come back again and do the same thing throughout the week. They expressed that they were having a tough time finding an interpreter within the Navajo Nation. So when I look back, I realized that that was a very difficult experience. And I contemplate that quite often, and we'll bring it again up in a bit about the challenges that I faced at Denny College, but I was able to push through them. Again, I had my support system, my family was there, and any help that I needed, accommodations for my writings and communications at school was granted. And so I was able to communicate via email with the professor. And I started getting a sense while I was there that I wanted to be a part of a club or an organization. And I realized at the time that I could just do what I can to make friends and participate in whatever clubs I could. So I did. I joined an organization that had an annual event called the American Indian Higher Education Consortium. And it's an annual event that they host in various regions, mostly with tribal community colleges. And it's almost a similar concept to when I went ASDB. They have Junior NAD, and that's Junior National Association for the Deaf. They also host conferences in various regions, and it's very similar. The Junior NAD is for the deaf community, and the other one is for those college students. And what I noticed is that most were hearing while I was the only one that was deaf. And then I moved to Minnesota. I felt out of place while I was in Minnesota. There was only one interpreter there in the program for me. Everyone else was hearing. It was a strange feeling there for me, and it really impacted me. And of course, it made me stand out because I was the one person there that had accommodations in all the classes, and my friends, my advisors, my other individuals that knew about the needs, interpreting needs that I had. It also impacted them because it highlighted that exposure to the deaf community and what the linguistic needs are. And that we're speaking, we're just speaking in sign language, just speaking with our hands. And that exposure is missing because the deaf community isn't visible. The deaf community's culture isn't out there. And so I was there as a part-time student, and then I was in DC and I spoke. But then when I was in DC, people started asking me, why don't I decide on teaching sign language, right? And teach the basics again. I thought, why not? So I started doing that to my hearing friends, which most of my friends are hearing anyway. So I was gonna major in fine arts at the time. And I do have a passion for art, to be able to express my thoughts, my emotions, my emotions through art, photography. That is my main passion. So I graduated there in 2016, got my associates in fine arts. And on my graduation day, when I think about that day, it's like, wow, I finally had an interpreter there. I took classes for 6 years and didn't have an interpreter. And finally, an interpreter showed up at my graduation. A lot of people showed up at graduation. I was a guest speaker to talk about my experience. And my point was, deaf or hard of hearing, regardless, you can do it. I spoke about my experience of having an education without an interpreter. And again, I'm extremely glad that I was able to expose the hearing community to those issues and also expose them to American Sign Language. If any of those folks that I presented to have hard of hearing kids, I mentioned that they could learn American Sign Language. I also mentioned that most folks are resistant to sending their kids away from the family for education, and that's a tough experience. And again, I had to relate and check my privilege as well. That my parents allowed me to go to school at ASDB 8 hours away, right? Maybe not everyone else has that opportunity. And so I realized that there is language deprivation that is happening. There is a lack of sign language exposure. There's a lack of an educator to provide ASL sign language education there at the Navajo Nation. When I made that realization and I put it together with my experience, right, just thinking about my background, I realized I just had to roll up my sleeves and follow through on education, even though my passion is art, because seeing it made it become more vibrant. And once I applied at Gallaudet, I was curious if they would accept me or not, because I had just graduated with an associate's. So I applied to see what would happen. I was notified that I got accepted at Gallaudet for my junior year, and that was in the fall of 2016. Again, that meant that I'd be at a distance, far from family. My family knew about the potential of me attending to Gallaudet. I had told them about that experience. They wanted me to attend because when I told them, they asked. And I told them it was the first university in the United States, well, actually the world, that serves deaf students. And so I told them that's an international university for the deaf community. And so they felt 100% confident. They said, they were kind of like, okay, you need to show us proof that you're gonna do it. And so that was another layer of stress, because I had to prove that to my parents. I had to show them that they were wrong, that I could do it, that deaf, regardless of the communication barriers, that I could succeed. And so I told my parents, okay, I got accepted at Gallaudet. I had just graduated from Diné College. And so I told them, look, even without interpreters, I graduated college. And so even though I fought for the interpreters, they didn't provide any. And so now looking back, I realized that I would still have to advocate for providing something for the family to see, something for the community to see, that there are deaf individuals in the community who need education. But in order for that to happen, they need a role model. There needs to be a successful graduate, someone who's completed the experience, right? So I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna apply at Gallaudet and I'm gonna do this. And I started thinking about my passion. I read through the program offering at Gallaudet. Their catalog had so many programs, almost 42 to 45 different programs for undergrad studies. And I could have picked anything I wanted. I was thinking about education and I thought, well, maybe I can become a teacher. I wasn't sure if I wanted to follow in my parents' footsteps and dreams, because everyone in my family are teachers and educators. And I was thinking I would try something different with my passion being art. However, even though I was thinking all that, I had a realization, right? So I stuck to art. I did art media design with a focus on photography and graphic design. And that was at Gallaudet. I was there for 2.5 years. And that was also a fantastic experience where I made more friends. I became aware of many things I never thought of in comparison to my experience at ASDB, right? While I was at the dorm at ASDB, we had the deaf community, and at Gallaudet, it was a similar experience, but it was a different academic level experience. It was an opportunity to become what you want. It was an opportunity to explore your future, your hopes, your dreams, to try to become someone new. I mean, the questions are wide open there for you to discover yourself at Gallaudet, you and your passion. So if it weren't for my experience at Gallaudet, I can really say I honestly might not even be here, and I wouldn't even know where it would be. I probably wouldn't have a job. I probably wouldn't have anything that I have right now. So I'm entirely grateful for that experience. And I also realized that I've got to share my experience and my role as a deaf individual. And folks need a deaf individual to look up to. And I realized I can become that person so that the younger students can look up to me and realize that they can achieve their dreams instead of, again, internalizing the oppression that they experience. I'm the person I realize that can share with them and say, hey, I did it. You can do it too. People need to see someone out there doing something good to be prompted and stimulated to also follow in those steps. So it's building a foundation, it's building a dream. And I often ask myself, in 10 years, where would I go? But then my response is, do it. Trust your journey. And sometimes you have realizations and you say, okay, this is something I'm uncomfortable with. Despite that, you've got to give it a taste. You've got to try it. You've got to see what your comfort level is after some time. Give it a chance. Now, returning to my time at Gallaudet, I said it was 2.5 years. While I was there, I learned about job opportunities and networking. My classmates there all had diverse backgrounds. And I was the only one that was Native American there. There was no club there like there was at Dene College. And so I thought to myself, well, why not start a club for Native Americans? But again, there were no Native Americans there. However, there was an individual from a different tribe, and she is a deaf-blind person. She's the one that convinced me to go to Gallaudet. And then I had another friend from ASDB who had also spoken to me to go to Gallaudet. You know, there was actually a number of people that convinced me to go to Gallaudet. And I did see that the number of POCs is expanding at Gallaudet. And so I started to network with folks there. Gallaudet also hosts job fairs. And again, I just wanted to step into some of their job fairs because I don't know what the future holds for me. So I was curious to see what the future is like. At that point, I didn't have any work experience. I did have internship, federal work studies experience, but I did want to see what type of career would be out there for me and whether or not it would fit. And so I started from the bottom with no knowledge, right, so to speak. So I didn't really know what to expect. So that first year, Gallaudet offers your major development course. And if it's not something you took in high school, Gallaudet will give you more opportunities to see and be exposed to things that you may feel passionate about. And through that experience at Gallaudet, my eyes were widened and I was able to see more. At ASDB, I'd say I had some motivation, but I really didn't have that stimulus, that information sharing. It was really just surface matter. And at Gallaudet, they really become profound with the exposure so that you can really immerse in it and see what potential there is for your future. Again, Gallaudet made me self-aware, made me realize that I need a job, that I need to support myself, that I can't rely on my parents all that time, and that I need to be autonomous, that I need to be independent, that I need to make money to pay for my schooling. And all the resources that can be possibly found are there available at Gallaudet. I applied for a Navajo Nation scholarship at the Navajo Nation office. I also applied for one in DC, and I was wondering if I would max it and have them run out of money. So I applied a second time. I was surprised that I was granted those funds to go to Gallaudet too. And so then after a while, I started looking for a job on campus. I found a job as a shipping assistant, and I became more and more full-time, even though I only wanted to work part-time. I was working inside the admissions and outreach offices. And again, I started from the bottom. I didn't care at that point how much I was paid. I think it was $5 an hour, which I was fine with because it's still money and experience. And that would cover my needs. So I started building my reputation there, showing my passion, my motivation, who I was as a person. And like I mentioned, I really started networking. I started meeting people and networking, and through their seeing my hard work, despite being a full-time student at the same time at Gallaudet, and I realized in my undergraduate years that I kind of put my education aside and focused more on my work. And I almost forgot that my education was important to me. I did forget to balance my time, so I had to wisen up in that area, but somehow I made it. I made it and I graduated from Gallaudet. I didn't expect that. You know, my parents trusted me. After graduating high school, I was thinking about going directly to Gallaudet, but I didn't, right? I think I'm glad that I followed my parents' advice. I went to high school and then I followed what they did. Now, if I had skipped and jumped to Gallaudet, maybe I'd have my master's now, maybe I'd have a job. But, well, I should say I do have a job. But I look back and maybe I could have done this sooner, right? With all I said, regardless, trust your journey because you don't know where it's going to take you and when you're going to go. Right now, I'm in my master's program. I'm at Gallaudet again. I applied for an MASLED, and that's Master's in Sign Language Education. So I am, again, pursuing the Master's in Sign Language Education at Gallaudet. But before all of that, I prodded them a lot. I asked a lot of questions at an open house. I wanted to understand what it was like. And that's how I found out you can develop your own curriculum there. And they have a philosophy there as to how to teach sign language for the K through 12 levels, high school levels. Well, realistically, for all the different levels that exist. So when I learned all that, I was reminded when I was learning American Sign Language in high school about my sign language professor and a teacher. And I thought, wow, I want to become a professor. And that indicated to me that I thought about it a second time. And I thought to myself, well, if Dene College offered a teaching position, which they don't right now, they only offer Navajo language literacy, And so I was thinking, well, if that position could open up, then I could become the ASL instructor or professor there. And that would be an amazingly rich experience for the Navajo Nation, for the Navajo community, because they could learn American Sign Language through myself, which means that it would expand our ASL language there at the Navajo Nation. And it would expand the interpreter pool. It would expand the deaf and hard of hearing community's use of sign language, and could also expand their education within the Navajo Nation. And they won't have that experience without a sign language teacher, special ed teacher. And so I've become, well, really, I see the potential there that I can be a professor. I saw that in myself. If I learn sign language, then I could help others with their American Sign Language acquisition and education. And I realized, I hadn't really thought about that the first time I started my college venture. And I thought, doesn't matter. Your journey will lead you. And as I went along, I thought, I think I'm going to become a teacher like my parents. Oh no. But I just trusted the journey. And I can tell you at this point, yeah, I have become like my parents. And it's a funny and very ironic story because I did not want to be like them, but I've become like them. And I see it now in a positive light. And they're also now people that I look up to. And I know that teaching sign language will have a huge impact on the community, and it will spread. And so I'm really excited to see the families out there that have deaf children or deaf relatives that are adults in their family begin to have conversations in sign language. And right now it's just at the precipice. It's just at the very beginning of what I can do. And I realize I didn't become a part of the program at Gallaudet for myself. It's for my community, for the Navajo Nation, so I could bring back American Sign Language, teach it there, and maybe work there, and even move beyond the Navajo Nation. And what that might look like for parents who say, no, I don't want to send my child, my deaf child or hard of hearing child, 8 hours away to a deaf school. For those kids and the education that they're missing out on, I would say that those children, our younger generation, they're our future. They can become something better than what we have been. They can have an improved experience by combining the wisdom from our ancestors, and they can have better lives. And they just need that language, that ASL language development for all the members that are deaf and hard of hearing of the Navajo Nation. And so, just looking back at it now, I never thought I would be an American Sign Language teacher, and now I am one. So it just makes me think about it over and over. I ask myself, why am I doing this? And, I still ask myself that question today. And sometimes I feel lost, but I constantly remind myself, I'm doing this for the community. This really isn't for me. And so a lot of times we don't see deaf and hard of hearing individuals on the reservation because they're hiding under a rock. Do they communicate with American Sign Language at home with their families? I don't know. Like I mentioned, my own family doesn't use American Sign Language. They use Navajo and English, and I have to voice and enunciate. And I realize now I need to sign with my family. I need to sign with the community members. Everyone that I share my life with, I need to sign with. And that's my emphasis now to everyone that I speak to, is you need to put the effort into learning sign language. Friends, family, relative, all of us need to encourage each other to put in the effort and put in the time. I think if Dene College could open up a position for American Sign Language, then that would be somewhere that families can apply. There's low cost tuition, and it's a tribal college, which means it's very inexpensive, very affordable. And I think that that would create and expansion of sign language use in the community and to the college itself, I think it would be okay. I have a letter of recommendation that I sent to the president of the college, and I indicated that our community needs more interpreters, more deaf advocacy, more deaf instructors, and the various needs. And so at this point, I have to find ways to see how to develop a program for all of these community members that I've mentioned. And I also go back to what I said at the beginning. I straddle both worlds, hearing world, deaf world. I've even thought about a cochlear implant because I used to hear. And I asked myself, is it worth my time? Would it be beneficial for me? Sometimes I feel like, you know, it's deep down inside that I want to hear again. But then I remind myself, hey, you're never going to hear again like you used to. And this is just a part of life. You need to find the positive and positive comments and positive support. And you just need to learn American Sign Language and move forward with this. And so that's the key here of my message is sometimes you've got to let go and you've got to find something you enjoy and dive into your passion. And I think that at this point is starting something at Denny College and getting American Sign Language exposure within the community. I feel like I covered most of my story. And again, like I said in the beginning, I'm very grateful for my parents' support, for everything they did for me, all the research they put into me. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have gone to Denny College, and I probably wouldn't have gone to Gallaudet either. But I do have to say, Gallaudet was a major, major experience. And I had not expected it to become such a huge part of me. There are just so many things that I look back at, and I have zero regrets, but I do look back and I see some mistakes, and I see that I learned from it. And I realize that it's important that we experience uncomfort and some tribulations. Like, for example, if you're learning how to ride a bicycle, you get on the bicycle and you fall. Now, of course, you're not going to cry forever. It will hurt, but you get back on the bicycle and maybe you ride up a hill and you do a crazy stunt and you do a crazy trick or something on your bicycle, right? Maybe you want to impress someone, right? And we know that people see your actions and they can praise those actions. And once they do that, what happens is it influences, it can influence some to become negative. And that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is show the possibilities and the potentials and show people that anything is possible. I think I've covered most of what I would like to cover. I'd like to thank Elena and Tosh for having me here. Thank you both. I have so many things that I do want to be able to share. So I guess if I think of something, right now, what I can say is trust the process. You know, tell your family once at least, tell them more than once if you have to. And if they're not making an effort, you need to help them realize that. And you need to work on communicating with them, right? Family has to make time and effort on their own time. We can't just prod them too much about it.
All right. Thank you very much, Colin. Yes, that was a very, very compelling and inspirational story. And we will be forever touched the day we met you at Denny College, summarized DC as we call it. So you went to Denny College, that we say DC on the reservation, Colin. And then when you went to Washington, they call it DC over there too. So you had two DCs. You went from DC to DC. That's funny, huh? anyways, Colin, we're very, very proud of you. We do follow you on Facebook. We watch your movements, and we just want you to continue to do what you're doing and process the way you process, reflect the way you reflect, hold what's most important to you in your heart always. You know where you come from. You have your land. You have your culture. You have your family. You have your people. And then you have your deaf family. And you have the whole world is your oyster, Colin. So make us proud, and you already are. And I hope your mom's on tonight. Is your mom on tonight?
So with that, you know, I'm going to just say this, Colin, thank you so much. When we first met you, as Tash was saying, we knew you were going to be going places. And it's a real honor just to be able to see you. So we really see you. And for those people who are watching, there's 23,000 deaf and hard of hearing Navajos on and off the reservation. If you're on the reservation, there's no American Disabilities Act. And what that means is there's no services. And in Colin's story, as he shared, going to Dene College, they couldn't afford to have an interpreter, so it was just all this back and forth. So what makes you extraordinary in your circumstances, which I believe nothing is ever by accident, is what you are doing. And we're very honored because all of our events through in the Indigenous Ways virtual events, we're on Wednesday in the Wisdom Circle. Friday, as Tash was saying before, we have the concert series. All our events have ASL interpreters to make access available for everyone. And so if you have not, if this will be recorded, and if you want to share what's going on, please share that link, or if you're on our live stream and you're watching the recording of this, please make sure you share it out, because as Colin was mentioning, it is about the connection and sharing that message, and also having that information, particularly with information of people who have gone through those experiences to make it more enriching.
And this is Tasha's voice here. I just want to say one more thing. Tonight we have a very special guest on. Her name is Arletta Toland. This woman I met in 1981 when I was very, very young. And I met Arletta. I met her then husband, deaf couple on the reservation. I met their two Coda boys, and I fell in love with the family. And the family taught me sign language in the 80s in Saley, Arizona. And just to let you know that because of that experience of me learning sign language at that young of an age, I knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. And guess what? Today I'm a sign language interpreter. And you know what? I give a lot of gratitude and credit for Arletta for taking the time to teach me the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s, the numbers. She started from basic, mother, father, boy, girl. This woman that's with us tonight from the Navajo Nation, Arletta, was my first teacher. So I want to thank you, Arletta, for planting the seed. And this is how it all starts, you guys. So Colin, I can only imagine how many people you're going to touch and educate so that we can pass on the interpreting.
So just before we bring everyone in through Zoom, we just need to go through a few things and what's coming up. So this Friday, we have the extraordinary Bill Miller, a multi-Grammy award-winning singer-songwriter. He hails from the Menominee Reservation. He's residing in Nashville, Tennessee. He will be through our Zoom and sharing his message and music like Colin has of rising and resilience. How do we do that in this time that we're in at the moment? And as Colin was just saying, one foot in front of the other in what he is very, very passionate about. So it's the same channel, same time as we have. And then next Wednesday, hailing from the Wampanoag tribe, we've got Leslie Jonas, who will be sharing about the Indigenous perspective on climate change. So please make sure that you come in for that. That's next Wednesday at the Wisdom Circle.
And always, we just want to emphasize to everybody that we're grateful for all of your support. We're grateful for you being here with us this night. And we're definitely grateful to Colin Denny. We have so much to share. Our Navajo Nation trip is going to happen again next week, Tuesday. Today we went to Meow Wolf and picked up 2 truckloads full of food. So that food needs to be delivered up to Black Mountain because that's where we said we would take it. So we're going to be going back.
So some of you may not be aware, but thanks to you, this will be our 4th run coming up next week. We had actually planned to go. We only just came back from last week delivering foods to the elders up there on Black Mountain. But thanks to the community from the 21st of May till last week, we've been able to take over $18,000 of emergency supplies and foods. So we can't thank you enough. And then at the moment, we're getting hand washing stations being made up to take that on our next run. But in the interim, thanks to Meow Wolf and our wonderful 2 people,
Demetrio and Donica,
who made this possible, as Taj was saying, 2 truckloads. So we're going to go up next week. We haven't decided if it's Tuesday or Thursday. We've had a lot of people still dropping over goods at our doorway. We're so honored to be able to doing that. So thank you so much in making that possible. And also, you know, as we do this, it is possible because of your donations. We have PayPal, Venmo. You can go to our website, IndigenousWays.org at the donate, or send in a postal address here. I just want to give a shout out to Dixie Mara, who watches the recordings, and also Sue Koski, who also looks at the recording, for your support. If you have seen our wonderful social media flicking across the stage, or you're watching on social media now, please make sure that you like all of us. And in saying that, if you're in Zoom, this is that wonderful time now. We're going to encourage you. Remember, this is getting recorded. So if you want to meet or see Colin, we're going to get you now, if you want to turn on your video cameras. While you're turning on the video cameras, if you want to come in and do that, the whole purpose of this is if you need to check in, or you might want to say something to the beautiful Colin, or you just might need to check in. Now's that time. I also want to say we've got what's been really cool before we went live, we had a whole mob of native deaf around the Zoom screen having a lovely conversation. If you're in our social media and you want to send a message out, put a chat in the box and we'll share that online. Tash?
And just to let you all know, we do have an interpreter, our beautiful Crescenciando, who did a fabulous job tonight voicing for Colin Denny. Spot on, amazing receptive skills. Best interpreter I've ever seen in my life. Cress, thank you very much for your wonderful service and for being our main interpreter for our shows.
And I'm going to go down. I'm going to go
on.
down and ask people to turn on your camera. If you don't want to do that, that's okay. That's what that's all about.
And as I was going to say, not everybody talk at the same time because the interpreter is going to be voicing. And maybe interpreter's so good that he can voice for 7 different people signing at the same time. So anyways, let's see what happens here. Cress, if you need any support, I am here to back you, okay? Just let me know.
Can you leave this?
Okay, everybody, go for it. Let's give it up for Colin Denny. Who wants to start? Woohoo, Colin!
Cheers, cheers. Person saying, so exciting, Colin, so exciting. Sarah says, I guess I'll go ahead and start. Somebody else has started in a purple shirt. She says, Colin, I'm just so amazed, so impressed. Just your thought process and also your plans about starting an ASL instructor program there at Dene College. I'm behind you all the way. And I agree. I hope it spreads ASL. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Tosh. Thank you, Colin. Colin says, yeah, thank you. We're out of time for tonight. She says, yeah, teardrop, says the person. I will have to meet you in person someday. Colin says, yes, I look forward to that. The other person says, you know, I'm also an American Sign Language teacher, and I have been for 30 years. So if you ever need some support, some help, I'd be more than happy to provide that. This is Colin. Yeah, I just graduated, just starting. Yeah, and I wish you much success. And the person is also saying, I'm deaf. I graduated at NSMD, New Mexico School for the Deaf, and NMSD. And Colin, you're just a beautiful person, amazing spirit.
Totally. Just before we go on, I just want to say that was Terry and also Sarah Youngbear Brown. Both of them have been through the Wisdom Circle that you can find. We're also excited next month. We've got another extraordinary deaf presenter who will be coming in through the Zoom Wisdom Circle. So thank you both.
I think Sarah Youngbear wants to talk now. Sarah, did you want to say something?
This is Sarah speaking. Yes, Tosh, thank you. Colin, that was a very inspirational presentation. I am extremely proud of you. And Colin, I'm also happy to see a Native individual being successful in the education arena, and navigating that arena and reaching the level you have is just so inspiring to me. It definitely is. And now, like you said, my daughter has someone to look up to. My daughter's deaf and she looks up to you. And I'm grateful to you for that, Colin, for you being that person. I kept telling my daughter, I was like, look at Colin, look, he's doing it, look. So we're going to keep our eyes on you. We're going to watch your path and your progress. And this is Colin. It's very rare to have a Native American ASL teacher. And when I realized the rarity of it, I also saw it as an opportunity for me to dive into. And I thought, why not? And Sarah says, you are breaking barriers, Colin, because you made it. You're at that point now. You crossed the line. Big hand waves for you, Colin. Big hand waves. Biggest cheers I can get. The world needs to know you, Colin. The world needs to know you. Kiana saying, wow, yeah. And this is Sarah. Again, thank you so much for your message, Colin. It was very much appreciated. Much love. Colin says, yes, thank you. Same to you. Much love. This is Christina speaking. Yeah, Colin, I too feel so inspired and touched by your message. I also appreciated knowing your struggles and all the ways you had to navigate to get there. And like you said, eventually you will get there. And no other Native students at Gallaudet. I know that there was a gal in the past. Her name was Saya Bird. And she's Cree. I know that she's Native American. Her tribe, she's Cree. Her and I are close friends. She lives in Virginia. And she graduated from Gallaudet as well. Now she is out of Canada. And so now I see you also graduating there. And I think we need to make the invitation to POCs and folks who are Indigenous like yourself, Colin, right? On your homeland, you need to make them aware. They need you. Maybe you can find a sign language interpreter come out of the Navajo Nation that would be an interpreter out of the program that you might teach and could eventually become an interpreter for the community there of the Navajo Nation. That's an awesome potential, and it's a need. That is a real need in the United States. We need more POC interpreters. So Colin, it's wonderful to see you become one of them, and I want you to persist and not give up. Now, keep in mind, you had mentioned art. American Sign Language is art. And as a teacher, you can teach from your passion, from your blood, from your veins. Your family is just like ASL. It's always inside you. And like you said, even though you go away, it's never really gone. Even if it's not your art that you studied, it's still inside you within your ASL. So again, Tosh, Elena, I want to express my gratitude to you for having Colin here to speak to us tonight. And I also want to say thanks to the interpreters for interpreting tonight. And thanks to everyone. Colin says, you know what? Thank you so much for saying that, because a lot of us struggle, but we have to remember that throughout our struggle, we're going to get somewhere at some point. And we're here for the community, and we need more POCs. And you're right. That's one main thought in my mind. We need more POCs out there. And so we have to start somewhere. This is Christina. You know, I want to make myself available to you, Colin, to be able to help and support in any way you can. Just like Terry Vince just offered, if you need help in teaching ASL, I'm here too. I teach ASL. I've taught for many years. And so I'm here to help you and encourage you so that your star can shine. Thank you so much for sharing that, Christina. I got it all. Thank you. You're very welcome.
Arletta, would you like to say anything? Arletta from Lukachukai.
Arletta says, hi, folks. Hi, everyone. Colin, I just want to say to you, thank you. And I want you to continue in your path. Continue as an ASL instructor, because our community needs teachers. We need teachers to teach American Sign Language so that we can have Navajo interpreters. You're on the right path. Thank you, Colin. And this is Colin. You're right. We need more sign language interpreters on the reservation so that we could actually have an agency there so that people can meet the requirements to become an interpreter. So I would be an ASL teacher for the hearing, and that wouldn't expose enough for the deaf. So we need a deaf sign language teacher that would expose the deaf community and the hearing community to American Sign Language. And that's where I feel I can come in, because there are a lot of hearing American Sign Language interpreters, but we need deaf people who can teach American Sign Language to the community. Yes, we've got 3, 4, 5 folks saying yes.
All right, is it? Let us still
Navajo,
talking.
You're right, Colin. We need interpreters that are from the Navajo Nation, not from other areas. And we also don't need, if we do have interpreters, to leave the area. The community has a need, and they need to stay there and serve the community. And I think it's best that you're moving in the direction to provide that instruction for them. This is Colin. Yes, I've had a lot of parents approach me and ask me if I can instruct their kids American Sign Language, but there's gaps. There's gaps because their language acquisitions hasn't been developed. They've been language deprived, so they haven't had that exposure. Some parents, most parents aren't willing to learn sign language. They'll say, teach my kids so that they can have their needs. But what they need to understand is that the parents need to learn themselves so that they can have those interactions with their kids. And so that's what's missing. Parents and families need to know that they also have to learn, and they also have to put in some effort. I have a memory of when I could hear, and I remember that I could speak, and I'm able to switch between American Sign Language and the use of my voice. But the families out there that have deaf people in their families need to learn how to do that as well, and turn off their voice and learn more American Sign Language and use it with their kids.
Keanu. Oh, Sarah Youngbear, go ahead.
Arletta is saying, yeah, you know, that is a rough experience to have to live at a deaf school far away from your parents. So you're right. We need an ASL teacher that's within the community so that the kids won't have to go so far for school. They need to be with their families, right? Yes, says Colin. And I think this is of an ongoing process. It might expand to where everyone here knows a little bit of sign language, maybe. Yeah. And Terry says, right. I wish you much success, Colin, says Arletta. And also Sarah's talking about having a note taker when I went to college and not having the interpreters. And it wasn't until I learned about the Americans with ADA, the Americans with Disabilities, the ADA. So maybe that's also something that you can introduce and start communicating with people about over there. It's a great opportunity. Colin says, yep.
Just
I'd like to hear from Keanu. Keanu, do you want to say something?
All right. This is Keanu speaking. Colin, right, is your name sign. Watching you present your message, right, it was a good story, and it took a long time to go through your experience, and it was very compelling. Thank you. And this is Colin. Thank you for watching, Keanu. And I just want everyone here to know that you can become whatever you want. Set that goal and chase it. Don't ever stop following your dreams. Terry agrees. So does Sarah. And this is Keanu. What I envision is bringing that to the res, and I want to be a part of something on the res, and then the screen froze up. So can you see me? Yeah, and this is Colin speaking too. Again, beautiful message. Keanu speaking. Beautiful message, Colin. And again, when I envision something, I found it very inspirational, but when I envision something, I do see it. I see it. I see having a lot of faith in the process, like you said. And this is Colin. Right. What you need to do is get into the process, start working on it, because there are going to be challenges along the way. As you put in your efforts, work through them. Don't let anyone else get in your way and stop you. Just work through your goals, and you will get there one day.
Beautiful. Well, some people on our Zoom are processing. I'm going to go over to our social media on one of the pages. And I just want to give a shout out. We've got Rita Haddad, who's beaming in from Canberra, Australia, who's on. But we've got a Carla Backrino who says, thank you so much for the wonderful work you are doing. Much love. We've got Jacqueline who was in Zoom. She says, thank you so much, Colin. You are an inspiration. And Colin, I'll send these texts to, oh yeah, you've responded. And a lot of people through our both are just saying how extraordinary you are. Now, anyone back in our Zoom that wants to say anything to Colin or check in?
There's three okay, there's three. Okay, go ahead, Nell. Sorry. Go ahead, Nell.
I'm just wondering if Chris Sanciano can sign for me to Colin. Yeah. So I have recently found out that, well, first I want to thank you for sharing your story. I recently found out that I am going deaf. So it has been a challenge. So I'm still learning ASL. So I am still very slow at it, but I do feel it's a challenge to try and find people to communicate with. I know you had mentioned to try and have people communicate with you, but I do feel that I'm running into challenges, especially at work. I don't have an interpreter, and as time goes on, it's going to get worse. So it's been quite a challenge, but I appreciate you sharing your story. Thank you.
This is Colin. Yeah, a lot of times I often meet people who are experiencing hearing loss, and I encourage them to learn American Sign Language now. When I lost my hearing, I was proud to become hard of hearing. I could still hear some things. I could still hear my parents' language. I could hear music. I understand English. Now I've lost all my hearing. So now I just remember everything. And I have more frustration with lip reading now. That's always going to be a challenge for me, the lip reading part, for the rest of my life. So the important part is to learn American Sign Language and then meet others from the deaf community and become involved in those events, maybe Zoom meetings that you can meet and learn from each other. That's the first step, is to dive into the community. And, there's always someone or something that you can start with. And, just share how you are feeling and be honest with your experience. And that's where you need to start, is with networking. And tonight is a great opportunity for you. There's a lot of people here in the Zoom. We're here for you. We support each other. And, you know, with the virus right now, you're probably in isolation and frustrated and alone. And so with the use of Zoom, and thanks to Elena and Tosh, we have this exposure to the deaf community. It's something that I've done all my life with my family and my friends, is pull them in and get those conversations going. So I encourage you to do the same too.
Real quickly, I just want to say Lucas wanted to share also. Lucas had your hand
Hang
up.
on, just before Lucas does, I just want to tab on to this now for you next door, exactly what Colin was talking about. But we've got TV, who is a teacher in ASL, also Christina, and also Colin. So my suggestion, we've got actually a lot of people on the line, but like Colin was saying, maybe now's the time to get people's contact
Get
numbers.
everybody's number.
Or if you're on Zoom, if you can text your information to Nell, and now you just follow all those information up.
Yeah, everybody that wants to share, put your information in for Nell in the chat box, and Nell can write it all down. Type your TV, put your email and your phone number, and then Nell can write everything down and contact you guys. Now that we're isolated, we got technology, we got the
Christina
computer.
says, type it into the chat.
Yeah.
Yes, TV.
My phone and email?
Yes, give Nell your information. Oh, yeah.
Okay, because I'm on a phone, I can't type. I'm on a little phone.
Oh, just write it and then put it in.
Perfect. But I just wanted to say thank
This
you.
Is the interpreter. Sorry, Tosh, I gotta go. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I'm out of time.
Okay, I'm going to take over interpreting.
Thank
I'm going
you.
to take over interpreting for. Okay.
Chris
Thank you,
and
Chris.
Sandra, and
Thank you
making
so
that
much. I'm
possible.
Okay.
And thank
No,
you.
thank you.
Thank
for letting
you,
me serve, yes.
Lucius, for your patience and doing that. Lucius.
Lucius, go ahead. I think Lucius froze.
Lucius froze. We'll come back to him. We've got Courtney and Laura.
Okay, go ahead, Courtney. Hello. Hello, everybody. My name is Courtney, and this is the first time I've joined this group. And hello, everybody. I'm on Zoom. I really enjoyed watching everybody and the show. So I just really want to let you know I've really appreciated the event tonight. And I also wanted to say my name is Carrie, and this is my first time joining Zoom as well. So I think it's very, very interesting, your story, Colin, and I really appreciated learning from you. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your story. And myself, your story is making me just really inspired. Like, wow. I'm sorry, this is the interpreter. The screen's freezing up. I've appreciated Ronald Cartner. It's a long last name, but I just wanted to thank all of you tonight for your stories and sharing tonight. Interpreters having a hard time reading the signing. I'm really, really, really touched. Wow. This has been great. Thank you to all people. Just don't ever quit. Stay with the light. And Colin saying, thank you there. Thank you very much. Yes. And Colin saying, I agree with that. Nice to meet you too.
If you can see us. Yeah, you're on.
Hi, my name is Luke.
Yeah.
My name is Luke, and can you see me now? Yes. Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, really. That was fabulous. Oh, my gosh. Everybody on Zoom. Yeah, before I was a teacher of ASL, and I immersed myself in it in a week immersion program at a deaf school. And parents were coming to the class to learn and about their children who were deaf and hard of hearing, and at the school for the deaf. And that week the immersion program was really awesome, and Yeah, there's people at the deaf school and
at NMSD, they do outreach, but it's not enough to get out to the res. So they need someone like you that can be there and
thank you so much, Chris.
give back just a bit. Yes, yes. Thanks, you, Colin.
Chris. Okay.
Thank you, Luke.
Thank you, Luke.
Okay, is there anyone else that wants or needs to share? Otherwise, we're going to sign off and do our usual closing. But, you know, while we're here, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming on and beaming in, bringing your friends, rewatching this if you're in the recording. But you know what? This would not have been possible without our wonderful presenter. So let's please give it up for Colin Denny. You know, and also, Colin, this is why we got you in, because you're going to be just changing so many things. And whatever we can do, and like people have shared, we're right behind you. We're right beside you. When you're feeling like it's too hard, we are with you. We've got your back. We're here. Okay, so as people have said, Sarah and so forth, never give up. I also want to say this before Tash says something, which is these events are possible because of our sponsors. The National Endowment of the Arts, the Santa Fe Community Foundation, the Santa Fe Arts and Culture Department, the New Mexico Arts, and also we have the People's First Fund. Also, the Wisdom Circle is possible also because of the New Mexico Humanities Council and the New Mexico, the National Endowment of Humanities. So I want to thank each and every one of you for beaming in. Tash has the last word.
We love you, Colin. Stay humble. That's your beauty. To be humble is truly a gift, and you've got it. That's where the power lies. Stay humble, stay beautiful. We love you, everybody. We've got to let our interpreter go. So,
and we'll look forward to seeing you all Friday night with the Grammy Award-winning Bill Miller.
Everybody
Otherwise,
come.
we'll be back here in the Wisdom Circle with our wonderful Wampanoag sister.
Stay tuned for Carla Garcia on August 12th. She's deaf. She's got a PhD. She's from Santa Fe. Luke, you probably know her, Carla Garcia. That's her sign name. She's teaches at CSUN, and she lives in Austin with her husband, Rogelio. She's going to be our speaker, so everybody tune in.
So we're excited about that. And let's once again give it up for the one and only Colin Denny. Thank you, everyone. Love you, big. Stay safe, stay distant.
Touch the earth, touch the earth, touch the earth. Feel the rain. Touch the